Hello, Pressing Images family. I thought that I would pop in this week and show you a little wood grain. I'm doing this on a can koozie because I'm making this for my husband. The colors that I usually use for wood grain are Tim Holtz Teakwood, Tim Holtz Ginger, and Tim Holtz Caramel. I find these three make the nicest wood grain. Usually I use the caramel and ginger combination for doing my vinyl to put like a name on as a decal. But what I do, I'll either use all teakwood or I'll do a combination of teakwood and ginger as I'm painting it on. So that's what I'm going to do with this one. The brush you want is one of a stiffer bristle. It's not stiff, but it's like a thicker bristle than your super fine ones. Never ever use good brushes with alcohol ink. The alcohol will just destroy your brushes very quickly. So to start, I use this 1-inch wide one. I also have this one. This is the one I tend to use for my my decals because it's smaller and maybe in some spots to help with wood knots and stuff. So to start, I'm going to, this is my cup. I've got it all taped off here because that's the threads for my koozie. So I'm just going to be going from here down, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a line, but I'm not going to take it all the way to this ridge in the cup, because what's going to happen if I do that is the ink is going to go winging down the line there and mess everything up. So I'm also going to do a line beside it of the ginger so that I'm mixing both of them together at the same time, and it's going to create depth, and you're going to long stroke all the way to the bottom if you can get there, and it's just going to create the illusion, I don't know if you can pick that up, but the illusion of a grain. And it's because it's got the two different colors, it's a little more separated. So I'm going to do that again, just side by side, and then just take your brush and brush it down. You can go back over spots that you miss or whatever, but you want a nice long stroke, because short choppy ones are going to give you short choppy results on your wood grain, and it's not going to look quite as natural. So I'm going to do a line of the dark, a line of the ginger. You can use espresso, you can use latte, you can use whatever color you want. This is just my preferred combination, and I find that it's provides lots of nice depth. I'm not too worried about the bottom right now, but I'm just going to brush it down in long strokes. I'll catch any spot that I miss later, and you can see, maybe you can't with this light in the window, how it's overlapping and giving dark and light tones as you go, so it looks just a little bit more barkish, because bark is not one color usually. But even if you just use all one color ink, you're going to get varied colors with the overlap. I'm just trying to hit a little bit of color in that white spot there. Alcohol ink is a funny thing as you go. If you go over top of it with more ink, you're going to have things like that happen, where it changes it, it lifts it. I'm not too worried about that spot, but it lifts it and changes it. So this is a good spot for a knot when we come back around, because now we have this funny little thing going here. But that's okay, because trees go through stuff as they grow, so that's, you're not looking for perfection here, but you are looking for something that kind of resembles what you're looking for. I always wear gloves when I do this because it can get messy. And I always put paper down on my surface because it can get messy. I've got wood, brown splatters all over this paper. So it's really just that easy. You just pull it along. Doing this on long water bottles is a little bit more of a challenge because you want as long a stroke as you can get, and the ink doesn't usually like to go all the way down, but you have to try and make it work. That's why I run instead of just doing a drop, I run a line down. It makes it easier to blend out in a smooth line. I think this one I'm going to put water slides on for a whiskey barrel, even though my husband will be using it for drinking beer. Wood grain tends to lend itself very well to a whiskey barrel cup. Alcohol ink sometimes has kind of a mind of its own. No matter what you try to do, it decides where it wants to go and how it wants to get there. See, by doing things like this, I'm getting little scuffy spots, which are a little bit more realistic to a tree. Very rare, unless you're trying to do like a polished wood grain, in which case you want to make things as smooth as you possibly can, and you might want to use a finer brush for those. I like it to be as realistic as I can get it. So on the bottom here, I'm going to do just a little bit around the edges. Just to cover up the edges, and then I'm going to do a knot on the bottom. I'm just bringing this in from the edge so it's not white and it comes around properly, following the grain that's already there. But it's amazing how quickly you get just a really nice polished wood look doing this. I've painted this, I forgot to mention, a flat white. It seems to work the best when you're working with alcohol inks, to use a flat white paint as your base. I don't know if it just grabs onto the inks better. So you can kind of see with this all of the bottom, all I've used is Teakwood on here. So you can see that you do get different values and colors just from the overlap of the inks. So if you've just got one brown, you can still get a really good wood grain. And it doesn't want to cover up that spot, that's okay. So you can either leave it like this, which looks really good, or I can take my lighter color. I'm sure glad Tim Holtz changed their lids. So I'm going to take this caramel color and I'm going to put a couple of drops on the bottom here, and I'm just going to work them outward. it's hard for you to see what I am doing, but I'm just pushing the ink around. Keeping it to the outside. So long as it's wet, it will move. And then I'm going to put another one in the center here. And I'm going to go out to just about the same. I'm just going to work it out to the side. Don't have quite enough ink, so I'm going to do some more. You can see that it's giving me lines, so it's gonna kind of mimic the tree ring. If you cut a tree trunk, you see the ring in the branches, or left in the trunk, with how many years old the tree is and whatnot. So you just keep doing this and circling around. You get the illusion of rings because you're making round lines around the outside edge. And I'm doing this a lighter color just simply because the inside of a tree is lighter than the outside. And if you just wait, you can blow on it a little bit, let it spread out. You can let the ink do a lot of the work for you. Just watch it spread. And then help it out a little bit. You do not have to do this by any stretch of the imagination. You can just keep it the way it was, with just the one color going all over the place. Make it look more like a polished lathe look stained thing. I just think this is kind of cute when I do this, so and this is along the same lines of how you create knots too. I'm just going to blow on that a little bit just to dry it a bit quick. So there we have just a couple of rings for the bottom. So then you can take a look. See, I've got a couple little dark lines there. That's great. That's what bark does. So I'm going to take my ginger here a little bit because I didn't get that quite the way I wanted it to go, and I'm just going to brush it out. And that's maybe just a little too light, so I could add some dark. Alcohol ink is really easy to fix as long as you stay within its limitations. can see it lift a little bit there, but if you keep at it, it doesn't create this giant white spot, because a lot of people panic when they're doing ink and they put it on top of another ink and it wants to try and lift away. That's what it does with alcohol. It's just what it does. Okay, I think I've got kind of the start of a knot here, so I'm going to take my ink and I'm just going to push it out into a shape. I'm going to keep it, see it went kind of wiggly there. That's great. That's knots are not perfect round things. And I'm going to do that again right there. I'm going to let it spread out. So just basically like I did on the bottom, just a different kind of a shape. And by all means, there's probably better ways to do this, and there's probably nicer knots out there. This is just the way I do them. Oops. Got a little too much right there. So that's okay, we'll just take this a little bit bigger. And throw some ginger in here. Just, oops, that's dripping really big drips for some reason. Just a touch. I'm just going to dab at that a little bit so it looks just a little scruffy and a little bit more textured. So there we have a kind of a knot. I usually do them a little bit better than that, but that's the way that worked out. Now I'm just going to go around and make sure that any spots that didn't quite get covered are filled in, because you don't want, you want it to look like you had a piece of wood and you carved it. You don't want it to look, and you can just put ink in your brush directly. Well, I think that looks pretty good, so I'm going to peel my tape. Now what I'm going to do after I let this dry really well is I'm going to brush a layer of Mod Podge over the whole thing, which will seal it. You will find a lot of groups tell you not to seal it, and that's their prerogative, but I have always had a problem if I don't. So I'm going to seal this baby, and I'm going to epoxy over it, and then I will put my decal on it, and it will all be fantastic. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.